I'll slide that sit down with them three down there. Might be a little cooler.
See, that's what I got it for.
Let's go. Brandy, did you get that? Oh. It was Somewhere Over the Rainbow, unaccompanied by Jimmy Mancini. Bill Collins version, Livingston Taylor version, whoever. Yeah, no.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 26, 2017 regular caucus meeting for the City of Brook Park. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Bergio?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
Troyer?
Present.
Powers?
Here.
McDonald? Here. Mancini?
Here.
Okay, would everyone please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 3, which is approval of minutes of the preceding meetings, and we have the regular caucus meeting that was held on August 22nd, 2017.
Motion to approve those August 22nd caucus minute meetings. Minutes?
Do that again.
Motion to approve those August 22nd caucus meeting minutes.
Support.
It's warmed up from the singing.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve, I think. Properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for August 22nd, 2017's caucus meeting have been approved. Now,
Yes. I am throwing out a motion or asking for a motion to put on tonight's agenda a discussion about the legislation that was supposed to be put on today regarding the 2 parcels that are for sale, that there's the company who is wishing to purchase it for discussion.
Support. I'll support that.
Mr. Chairman.
okay, there's a motion to, just a minute, Mayor. There's a motion to place legislation on tonight's caucus agenda. It's been properly supported under discussion. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I'd ask the council put this on the next caucus meeting so we have the opportunity for Mr. Dolan would be here. I would have had him here if I knew it was on the agenda.
Okay, but this is more of a procedural thing for us, Mayor. What we're going to be doing is, at least, because in August we made a motion to place it on tonight's agenda.
Right.
Oversight by us, we did not place it on the agenda, so
Right.
want to have it on the agenda. When we get to it, we'll just move it to
Okay,
the
that's
next
fine.
caucus.
That's
okay?
fine. I just wanted, we weren't
Yeah.
prepared to
It
make a
was my
presentation.
intent to put it on the caucus
Okay,
meeting
thank
for
you.
the
Well,
3rd.
we
Thank
at least
you.
have to just
Yeah.
get through it.
Thank you. That's fine.
Okay, so there's a motion to place it on tonight's caucus agenda. It'll appear right after the Service Committee, and it'll be under the Finance Committee, so we will be changing, that'll be number 7, Roman numeral number 7, and then we'll be changing the adjournment to Roman numeral number 8 with this motion. And then it'll be item number 1 under the Finance Committee. So is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
McDonald?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Okay, so that item will be placed on tonight's agenda. We'll move to item number 4, which is discussion. Number 1 under discussion is the Department of Liquor Control, Grab and Grow Deli, LLC DBA, paperwork was provided in the packet. If there's no objection by council, what we would need then is just simply a motion that this was discussed, and we wouldn't be requesting any hearing. I don't know if the mayor or the law director would care to speak to this request.
Carol and I were talking today. I haven't had a chance to talk to Ted about this. I don't know anything about this application. If they're going to put a deli in there, they haven't applied for occupancy permit that I'm aware of. So I really don't know anything about what they're proposing to do.
Okay, Ms. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I did speak with the mayor today with regard to this issue, and I also had occasion to speak with Mr. Hurst. I don't believe that they have applied for the occupancy permit, and so therefore it might be a good idea to take a little bit more time with this.
Councilman Salvatore, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would feel more comfortable too, knowing, is this a new issue, or is this a transfer? And I just, gentlemen or party, whoever's applying for this, are they in this type of business already? Do they have a history anywhere with any other community? Were there any other violations against the license if it was a transfer, if it is a transfer? So I do think there are a few questions that should be answered, and if we could get the gentleman to come before council, I'd make a motion that we place this on the next caucus.
Support.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the motion is to place it on the October 3rd caucus.
10th.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
We'll have Mr. Hurst find out who the applicant is, and I think it would be in order for him to come before council and let us know what he's going to do. So if you include that in your motion, we'd appreciate it.
You would have Ted Hurst come and present?
No, I want the owner. I want to know who.
Well, that's what the
He
motion
should
is.
be here to tell council and us what he's going to, what he proposes to do.
That is the motion. That's always
We can add that as a friendly amendment. We'll just add. Okay, so the motion is to move this item to the October 3rd caucus and put a request in for the owner to come to the caucus to discuss this with us. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Vergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Okay, item number 1 has been moved to the October 3rd caucus meeting. That moves us to item number 2, which is the request for a conditional use permit to construct and maintain a 2-family dwelling at 6091 Smith Road, located in the U1A5 zone. Do we have, is Erica Bogdan here?
Yes.
Okay, if you would go to the podium for us, please. Okay, Ms. Bogdan, if you can give us your name and address for the record on the recording then.
Erica Bogdan, 4450 Sir Richard Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone from council or the mayor want to speak on this, since this is coming from planning?
You want me to do it first?
If you're the planning representative for us, yes, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Council, I did this pass except for me. I was a no vote on this at planning. There's a lot of good things about this. Nice brick building. It looks like the ones over 130th. I don't know if you've seen those and you've seen the picture in there. I don't have a lot of issues with it. I just have one, and I brought it up, and I would prefer this to be two separately owned, or be available to have them both owned separately, so they would not necessarily be rentals. In this, when it's a double like this, it's owned by one person. One's going to be a rental, and my constituents don't rentals. They've been asked many a times, and usually the survey comes back, we want single family. So that's my only issue with this. I think it would be better to have separate plumbing and separate utilities for each one. But other than that, they did change it to having 2 driveways, 2 separate garages. So there's a lot of this. So just because I'm a no, you know, do whatever you need to do. I'm just saying, in my opinion, and talking to my constituents, they don't want rentals. Thank you.
Okay, so if after, I mean, so council's aware, I mean, we're gonna have the discussion, he's on the planning committee.
This is the house, if you want to pass
If
it.
council wants to go forward with this, the end result would be we'd be making a motion tonight to draft legislation on the agenda, but we'll have some more discussion. Ms. Bogdan, if you could just pay attention, because at some point they may have questions for you, okay?
Okay.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you for recognizing the President. I also hear from a lot of people too, and I believe that a lot of our residents, anything new is good, okay? Yeah, you could go into the rental aspect. Doesn't mean it's going to be that way forever. Do I stand corrected? I mean, hoping somebody's going to, are you going to move in there?
No, the grandkids gonna move in there.
The grandkids are going to move in there, okay. But it is family,
It's
right?
Excuse me?
It is family, right? Yes.
Yeah, oh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mr. Bogdan, you've spent money in this community before, have you not?
Yes.
No, thank you. And this is what I always pushed that we need. Development in Brook Park, I think, would be good development. Think of the homes around there. Me, theoretically, in Ward 2, I don't hear that a lot. I hear a lot to build, get businesses, get building here, so that's how I feel about it. I'm all for this. I'd even make the motion to put this on the next council agenda. And it was on the planning committee. And, I stand to say that, I love development, okay? And I'd like to sure see a lot more of it also. Okay? Passes our planning commission, passes our building department, things of that sort. Okay, nobody's approached me saying they didn't want this. Okay? To me, that's always a good thing, because I'll say it a million times, I'm out there, so. But that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councilman Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personally, I think it's a great idea. I like the concept, bringing your family into Brook Park, and then you're going to own it, going to build it. The two concept is something that we really don't have a lot of, so it may be a great addition to our community. As far as splitting it and having 2 separate owners on each half, if that's what you were proposing, I wouldn't support that at all. I think, well, I think we learned from our mistakes, and the situation at Glenway is a similar situation where somebody owns one unit, somebody owns the next. One guy fixes the roof, the other guy doesn't. Up on the Trisket and Puritas area, there's see that all the way throughout Cleveland when they split the deed and they broke a 2-family into 2 separate parcels, and only one was being taken care of and the other isn't. So I think single source responsibility is good on what you're planning to do. So, as one councilman, if there's no other questions, I'd make a motion to prepare the legislation and put it on the next council agenda.
Well, if you don't mind, Councilman, I'd prefer you hold on. I'd like to have discussion first and then entertain the motion. So.
I don't mind at all.
Okay. Councilwoman Powers, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is in a zoned single area, and it is also in a known flood area. So I have said many times and discussed it with the mayor, I don't believe we should be putting basements in flood zones, and because we don't want to come back next year, the year after, and for the next 20 or 50 years say, oh, it shouldn't have been built with a basement, because that doesn't solve the problem. So I really think we should be doing a basement, and if it's going to be, I would like for them to go back to the drawing board and in order to conserve space and have more green space on that lot, if they're going to do it, is make it basementless, make it garages in front as part of the house. So that would separate the two units. If you had the garages right there, it would give them more privacy, and then you just build your house back from there, living room, everything. And if you want a it's going to be upstairs. Put your laundry room upstairs, put your utilities other than that right behind the garage area. And if you, instead of having a basement, if you needed more space, add like a family room at the back of the house, and you'd still have more yard space, and you'd have more space on the sides of the house. So that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any other discussion?
I had one quick question. In case unless I misunderstood Councilman Troyer, you did say it passed at the Planning Commission except for you? This did pass at the Planning Commission?
Yes.
It did. Everybody, it was unanimous except for you. Is that correct?
It would not have been a unanimous.
There was one dissenting vote on planning, but it did come forward to council from planning with their approval.
Okay, that's why I just make sure I didn't miss something. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Bergio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair to Councilwoman Powers. I'm not aware of that particular parcel being a flood zone. I live right around the corner from that. Do you have any knowledge of it being a flood zone in that area there?
Yes, I had last week, we had those two floods 2 or 3 weeks apart. The people over there on Pickway, which is right.
Well, I know
behind
Pickway
that.
was, yeah, I know
Yes.
that. This is on Smith, and I wasn't sure if you knew something.
Pickway, Fayette, and that area is a flood area. And
Yeah, those areas I'm aware of, yeah. I
Pickway,
didn't.
people right in the middle of the block that they were flooding. So that whole area over there floods. So it is in a flood, and I just think that we might be putting ourselves in a position for some litigation if they put the house there and then it floods. How liable are we because we said, okay, it's fine, good place to, but not if we get floods over. We are supposed to be doing something to try to remedy the flooding situation in this town, and one way to remedy it is not to put basements where you know it's going to flood. So that's my point.
Okay, I just wasn't aware that that area right on Smith was prone to floods. I live, like I said, right around the corner from there. I never get flooded. I know on Pickway and down towards Fayette they tend to get it, but it's a little lower terrain there. So I just thought maybe you had some other being a flood zone.
If you
That's
walk
all.
over there and talk to the residents, you'll
I have,
learn
yeah, I have done that.
that it does flood over there. Okay, thank you.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just want to clarify something. The biggest problem with this is that it does make at least one rental. It would add one rental to our city by law. And I'd like to clarify something on the Glenway. I do have Glenway style townhouse. And the problem with those is nothing is separate. Of course, the gas and electric are separate. I shouldn't say nothing. The plumbing is not separate, especially the waste, and that creates a problem. And the roofs are not divided, and that creates a problem. Whereas my understanding, and I would hope there would be some kind of a firewall concept going through the roof of this, which would prevent, which would delineate the different halves of the house. So, I mean, that's my point on that. Now, I understand there are the problems with Glenway again are because nothing is really separated. And again, my biggest problem with this is the fact that it adds at least one rental, and it's that family's going to live there, and I'm sure it's going to be nice for quite a few years. But we have to look at down the road. How's this property going to be maintained? Who's going to own it? Happen down the road. And I'm not going to, just for a little bit of a plus now, I'm not going to, hurt our city 20 or 30 years down the road with the property maintained right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm not aware of any flooding situation that this would do. The Pickway area down there, as a matter of fact, next week I hope to have an emergency piece of legislation to fix the one section of sewer there on Fayette. But clearly there's an isolated problem in those areas that may require a retention basin. Regional Sewer is going to be doing some further testing in the area to tell us what needs to be done. I don't believe this adds any problem for us in the flooding situation. The problem with Glenway is there's multiple owners. why this is, I think, more appealing to us. There's a single owner, whether they rent one side or not. In Glenway, you have ownership, and then you have individual ownership. That's the problem. There's too many owners at Glenway. I think this is a good development. We have the same identical building on 130th Street in Holland. To my knowledge, it's never been a problem to the city in all these years. And this property has been on the market for a long time. And this tie, as Councilman Salvatore said, there, while there may be a rental component to it, and this is a type of housing, and the way it's built, I think would be attractive, and there might be a need for more of it, particularly along Snow there by the funeral home. That area there might be an area where this type of housing would work, and you're seeing folks that want in-law suites because they're taking care of their parents, so we would be offering another type of housing. But we're talking about one there. I don't see any negative. In particular, whoever buys this must conform to the conditional use permit, and if they do not, they are in violation and they're non-conforming. So it gives city a great deal of control. He did address the garages, which we think is a better flow there, particularly for being on Smith Road. So, Mr. Chairman, I can't see any negative to this proposal, and we'd ask council to get the legislation and approve it on a conditional use permit. Thank you.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I think everybody knows where I live. When I built right over here on the other side of I-71 on Sylvia, if everybody remembers, before them 21 homes were built, it was a pretty swampy area. I think most of you have been around, remember that. I know a lot of you haven't, but I chose to build over there. I was the last one to build, and I didn't think flooding. I didn't think anything. My point is that I did that 25, 26 years ago, and I've had friends that built the city since, North Ridgeville, Medina, and some maybe not as far as maybe 4 or 5 years ago who have had flooding. I haven't, knock on wood. A lot of my good friends in the city have, and I don't want no more flooding than anybody else up here or out there or out in that community anywhere else. But I am for development. I am for moving ahead in this town. I'm glad we're looking down the road because this maybe might be a part of it. So I chose to build here. I'm hoping choose to build here. I hope many more choose to build here. We have to think positive, think ahead. Yeah, Councilwoman Powers is right. We have to look at the flooding. I had said that last week. But I don't think that should stop us from moving our agenda ahead. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councilman Salvatore, you want one more?
I want to say, if there's nobody else has anything to say, I would just like to say welcome to Brook Park. I'd like to make a motion that...
Councilman, if you would wait, because I actually want, besides comment, I wanted, since they took the time to come here, I don't know, they didn't seem to ask you too many questions, but I don't know if you wanted to make any statements to us or anything like that, if you just came to answer. I didn't want to have you come here and not have the opportunity at least to address council.
While you were talking about mother-in-law, son-in-law, my granddaughter promised me she's going to have me there, so.
Okay. I just, I wanted to offer you the opportunity to speak before we make our motion, so thank you. Okay, Councilman Salvatore, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Motion to have proper legislation drafted and placed on the next council.
Support.
Okay, the motion made to draft legislation placed on the next meeting. It's been properly supported. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers? No. Troyer?
No.
Bergia?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
5-2.
Okay, 5-2, so it passes. That concludes the items number 2. Thank you for coming up. We appreciate you coming to our meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes item number 2. So we will move to item number 3, which is the proposed 2016-2017 council rule change for Councilman Salvatore. Council rule number 7. Councilman Salvatore, if you'd like to go first, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just eliminating the audience participation at the end and moving it up to the section where you can only speak on legislation. It's really just combining the both, being able to speak on any subject. I really don't see it.
What's the teacher's, what was the teacher's name? I can look it up.
11:59.
Okay.
Right.
So you know what, is it on the website?
It's at 7 o'clock.
Here says it's at 7 o'clock in here.
But if we have it at 5, we should be.
Our meeting will be done by then. I just wanted to know what time the
We
meeting.
were really paying attention. Very interesting.
You got a little accomplished. Got some things accomplished, huh?
I'm up and running, so.
Okay.
Okay, Councilman, if you want to start going, we'll get going with Council Rule 7. When the live stream kicks up, it'll pick us up whenever it starts.
Okay, but as I started to say before the lights went out, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're just removing the second audience participation agenda, or if it's pertaining to any subject, and that's my proposal. And everyone's been provided a copy of the rule change.
Okay, is that it, Mr. Salvatore?
That's it.
Okay, Councilwoman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you know, and I've spoken before on this, this was at the orientation, this was my rule change. The reason being, and I'd like to tell you why, was when I was here during our important fire station issue and a few other things, that I thought we should get business out of the way. I thought it's a council meeting and get the business out of the way, and people could feel free to speak. I did say that, you know, at the orientation, that I would give things 6 months to a year. My point being on that is I didn't know that we'd be having the meetings as long as we would every Tuesday. And, you know, I mean, I didn't mean it to be a bad to people who wanted to speak to have to wait 4 hours to speak. I'm hoping, and I'm thinking positive here, that's not going to be the case no more. I always feel that, like, if people need to, you know, want to talk, or there's an important issue, or something big happened in Brook Park, or there's a loud crowd, I did it already. We could move audience participation right to the forefront, and I'd be more than happy to support that if my colleagues would, you know, let me know that that's going to be the case, or it's something in their intentions to do. So I will stick by this rule number 7, that we have audience participation at the end. I know it might not be the most pleasant thing for some people, but I've also believed when I got on council that business is conducted first and participation at the end. I do know, and I'm going to elaborate on it, that, you know, schools do it somewhat in the beginning, other cities do things different, and I'm sure in time we will too. But that's my stance on it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, before we get to any more discussion, I did a little bit of, I looked at some of our old rules, so I did a little bit of information gathering. I want to just share the information with council. You know, our rules that we had hard copies of go back to 1974. In 1974, we had audience participation just at the one spot, and it continued that way all the way through 1981. And then in 1982 is when it got changed to audience participation was split right now, where it was two spots. The first spot was just for legislation, and the second spot was for at any subject at the end of the meeting. So that got changed in 1982, and it wasn't until 2010 that it got changed back to the one spot. So for 28 years, we had participation at 2 different spots. It got changed in 2010, and it stayed that way until last year when we moved it back to 2. So I just wanted to at least give you a little bit of background information about the history of audience participation. Okay, Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Jimmy said everything that I wanted to say. It is a business meeting, and business comes first. If we run like we've been running, if something has to be cut, it's better to cut audience participation than it is to cut council business, because after all, that's why we're here, is to conduct council's business. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I remember Councilman Mancini lobbying for this, And I remember having a discussion about what's more important, the council's business or remarks from the audience. And the conclusion was come to that, for instance, we had the gentleman and his daughter, we're having a legislation drawn up for that double house. Well, you know, they're probably going to come to the council meeting looking for us to pass this. And do we make them wait through all that audience participation to know if it passed or not? Or do we go ahead and get it passed and then have audience participation? Again, the reason we have it twice is because you can discuss all the things on the agenda to hear before we cast our vote, but then other subject matter not relating to that council meeting can be discussed, or not discussed, but brought up at the meeting. And it was a good compromise, and I think we should stay with it. This is one rule change that was a great rule change, and I thank Councilman Mancini for that. Thank you.
Any other discussion, council?
Motion to place on the next council agenda under verbal approval.
Support.
Are you placing it on the October 3rd, the one just before the council meeting, or?
Well, the next council meeting has to go into a
council meeting. I'm sorry. Okay, so the motion is to place it on the October 3rd meeting for verbal approval. I'll ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergia?
Yes.
Yes.
Mancini?
No.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Troyer?
No.
4-3.
Okay, council rule 7 will be placed on the next council meeting, October 3rd, for verbal approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That concludes item number 3. We'll move to item number 4, which is a 2017 budget and appropriations per Council President Astorino. As you know, Finance Director has indicated to us that they are in the process of making some amendments to the appropriations ordinance. He's working with the mayor on some. I wanted to bring it up tonight because there are a couple items as far as from council's perspective that I just wanted to have some discussion amongst the council members and also with the finance director to make sure that those items are handled. So I'll start out, Mr. Single. The one thing that I'm trying to I focused on simply just accounts 110 and 111, which are the council and the clerk of council's appropriation ordinance. And under the 110, I believe it's the 523 account, professional services. I think that's where we had the money in there for the court reporters. If you could check on that, because if my memory serves me right, we appropriated $14,000 for the court reporters, and we've spent just a little over $10,500. So maybe an adjustment there do it, because the other concern I have then deals with the in the 111 account with council. I noticed in the August report that you issued on the clerk of council that we've already exceeded the appropriations for the part-time salaries. So I don't know particularly how you handle that, but you know, I don't know if I do know that the salaries we've appropriated more than we're going to be spending there, but we're going to. I really don't like looking at a report that shows an August unencumbered in the negative. So I didn't, I was hoping maybe you could make some sort of an adjustment there. And then the only other one question I did have is, I believe we received a refund from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Where does that show up at? Would we reduce the appropriation for the amount, or is it just money coming in as revenue? How will that be reported?
Money coming in as revenue, so it'll be in the refunds line item or the reimbursements line item in the general fund.
Okay. Council, does anyone on council want to talk about anything with the appropriations? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. If the finance director would like to speak, that's fine, or answer what I have to say. I just am concerned because we were told a few, I believe June or early July, had to be June, right? Early July, when we have meetings, that we are going to, I'm sorry, it was probably mid-July, that we were going to get a updated budget, an amended budget. I know it was at that time talked about on the capital side, but then I suggested, and I'm always looking to get a budget. I think we should adjust our budget every quarterly, so we're up to date, and so we're people can see what we're doing if they want to go and look, and we know what's changed, because it's the council's responsibility to watch the money. And I think really quarterly, since we obviously you only do it a couple of times a year since we passed the budget every quarter. And I think around mid-year, and then around this time of year, we should get an updated appropriations budget and or amended appropriations budget, and know where we're at and know where things are going. Because right now we could have put it in this place and it's being spent over here, and sometimes that's not. Obviously, when it's not legal, it's not being done. But still, we need to know in each department where that money is being spent. So I would request that we get an amended budget to us as soon as possible, so we can look at where we're at, and no decisions need to be made, and we got a good idea what's going on. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Single.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me respond real quick. There are items on tonight's special council meeting that, if approved, they're going to need appropriation changes that will be part of the amended appropriation ordinance. So we are working on it. Council each month does get a monthly appropriations report along with a fund balance report and a revenue report, which tells you exactly where we are. You can see where the expenditures are, you can see where the revenues are, and you can see where the fund balances are at the end of each month. So if there's a specific question on expenses, revenues, or fund balances, please ask me. But no one's asked. Mr. Troyer hasn't asked at all this year on the items that I can recall. But if there's any questions on a specific expenditure in a line item or a revenue line item, as Mr. Astorino just asked, or in a fund balance, please let me know. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the council president related, for instance, in the council office, we usually make changes within the existing cost centers. Appropriations are not read. In the case, as Greg said, we had to wait to see where the proposals came in on the phone for the city hall, the estimate of the parking over there. We have 2 sewer projects, one on Fayette, and the other one is on Parkland, I think. It's over there, and we're waiting for that one last bid to adjust that. It's in the capital cost center. Some things have cost more, some things have cost less. For instance, in the police department, we'll be spending less money there in their capital for their office. We can move some of the stuff we have here now over there. On the operational side, we've got to deal with the 6 weeks vacation, the BWC refund, as Jim has pointed out. So there are some line items in the general fund that we have to adjust. The extra training pay, what effect that's going to have on us as well going forward. So again, I don't have any problem with a midterm review, but usually we do in the beginning of the year and the third quarter of the year. And we're not in a situation that I'm aware of that we have any, we're going to be within our budget, so there's no alarming concerns on our part. We usually always wait on big capital projects to the third quarter so that some event would occur financially we're unaware with, so it's not unusual for us to do this. So I don't see anything that's alarming. And once we get these things done this evening, and next Tuesday, if I have the finals on the sewer repairs that need to be done, then we should be able to finalize the changes and get it to council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Single, if I could ask, because the only thing I saw with you usually provide us every once in a while with a capital improvement report. But the last one I saw was, I think, April or May. I don't know if there's some way you could just provide us with an updated one as soon as possible so that we could at least see what's been spent.
Yeah, I can do that. Not a problem. Mr. Chairman, if I may too, for the clerk of council, Department 111, now the council has made a decision on the pay increases for both the clerk and the assistant clerk. We can move money from the regular salary line item down into the part-time salary line item. And if we're short, I think what you're saying in the council department, that 523 professional services, there's excess dollars there. If we're short, we'll just place it on the amended ordinance to move the monies from that line item into the part-time salaries line item and the clerk of council department.
Like I said, I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I just noticed with the August report that the one was in the negative,
right,
and I didn't like that looking like that.
Okay,
so
we can clean it up.
Okay. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President, and thanks for clearing a few things up, Mayor. Exactly, cost centers and line items is what I'm talking about, because there are things allowed to be moved around. And I also, and you made my point exactly, that we're going to pass legislation tonight that it's spending money that's not where it's supposed to be, or it's not being spent on what we appropriated it for. So even though the mayor has a lot of leeway on the capital budget, so that's what I'm talking about. We should amend the budget to reflect what we're planning on doing. But if we do something outside of what we were planning on doing, we should try to shortly thereafter to make it accurate, to make it on the up and up. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I may respond for that. It is on the up and up, Councilman. Use your classic example. The total cost center for the operation of council has a general appropriation. So every line item within is under the general appropriation which you approve. The capital improvement fund was approved by you. So in other words, if the police department, I thought it was going to be $95,000, and it came in at $45,000, but the fire department needs something, you pass that legend that says appropriated or to be appropriated. Therefore, when you pass that legislation, you say that that money can be transferred from that cost center. In many of these cases, they're being spent within the existing cost center for something a little bit different, or maybe that comes in $1,000. For instance, tonight, the new phone proposal after the resubmittals is $7,600 less than it was before. All right, so then we make that appropriation change, and if there's existing money in that cost center that can be applied to that area, we will do it. If we need, we'll bring it back to council and our appropriation change. So it is on the up and up, and we bring it to you accordingly, and you pass legislation to do it. That statement, once again, is inaccurate. So if council, we used to have monthly appropriation changes for 15 and 20 cents. That was ridiculous. So we changed it, and I think it works best here because it reflects what happens and gives us the flexibility to operate. And for instance, this year it operated way differently than it ever has before. So your expenses changed a little bit. So therefore, you made a general appropriation. It appears that you've done within your general appropriation can be funded from that general appropriation. So I don't see where there's anything that's untoward about this at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, not to belabor the point, but I have a draft version of the amended appropriation I've been working on, and as of today, the total effect of the appropriations moving monies from the department will be 0. So when the mayor proposes these items, like the ones that are on the council meeting, special council meeting after the caucus meeting, we know where we're taking the monies from, or there are dollars in other departments that we can reduce to make these expenditures. So the net overall effect for council's knowledge, it's a $0 effect. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, and on that, Mr. Single, the main reason I'd like to get a report on it is because we have had discussions earlier this year about dealing with the home maintenance assistance program and also dealing. And it'd be kind of nice to have enough time to, if council wants to do something with that, we could do that. So I think that's why updated it would be nice to see, so that we can make some decisions if possible on those type of items.
Yeah, the report you're looking for is an item, but so all the members of council has a report of capital. So it itemizes the total expenses. That's not really going to help on the HMAP program, because HMAP, Maintenance Assistance Program, gets accounted for out of the Economic Development Fund, Fund 243. But I'll get the report together.
Right,
and
I
send it
understand it's
over.
out of 243, but we did transfer money from the general fund into the 243. So it's something that we might be able to do to expand it a little bit if we want to. But until we see the different adjustments, the different expenditures, we can't necessarily. We're a little saddled on making those decisions, and that's all. I'm just saying, if we can see an updated thing, it'll give us time to react to it too. So, thank you. Okay, seeing no other discussion on that, we'll conclude item number 4 and number 5.
Motion item number 4 is discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. And Ms. Blazek, thank you. Motion that item number 4 was discussed, been properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Yes.
Perugio?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes. Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Okay, 7-0. So item number 4, the 2017 budget and appropriations, has been discussed. We'll move to item number 5, which is the investigators report per Council President Astorino. On the agenda, in case council wanted to have some discussion about this. As you know, it was presented at last week's meeting, and there was some reaction back from. So I was just putting it on the agenda to see if council wants to do anything with it tonight. Councilwoman McDonald.
Yes, thank you for recognizing me. I would ask that we take this discussion off the agenda today and place it on the caucus meeting for October 10th. I have time to look at all the information, and I would like to get some specific answers as far as where some of the information came from.
I support that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so the motion is to take it off tonight's agenda and place it on the October 10th caucus. It's been properly supported. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
McDonald?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Perugio? Scott?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Okay, so item number 5 has been moved to the October caucus for discussion. We'll move to page 2. We have item number 6, which is an ordinance amending sections 153.01A5 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Vacations and declaring an emergency. Under discussion, council, we have items number 6, 7, 8, and 9. As you can see, I'm talking about under 6, but I'm just letting you know. The other 3 items also were on a June 27th caucus meeting, and there was a request by council to forward some information requests or questions to be asked about this legislation, and that was provided to the law department on June 30th, and haven't heard back from them about any of these items. So I was putting it on here because I'm a little concerned that this legislation is just sitting in limbo, and there seems to be limited activity on it, and we put a request at the end of to gather some information, and we haven't heard back. So I was hoping under discussion on these items that we would either find out a status update or at least get some of the answers. So, Councilman Scott.
Yeah, I make a motion that was read in committee. Support.
This is not in committee. It's under discussion. It's an ordinance that has not been.
Motion was discussed.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion that item number 6 was discussed. It's been supported. Under discussion. Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I think, and I would just as soon group the whole bunch together since they are together, same thing. I don't think we should give any more vacation time and or any of the cause. I am a union person. I am a union supporter, but I do not see giving more just because the union always goes for more. I think these people are paid very well as it is, and they do not need the extra income, the extra money for vacation time. They don't need the extra days of vacation, hours of vacation. Thank you.
Councilwoman McDonald.
I guess my concern about these 3 or 4 that are grouped together is not necessarily the content of it, but the fact that these were the legislation that were presented that did not have the appropriate stamp. So while the information could be valid, I feel like these all should be killed and we should start over.
Yes, when these first came out back in July, that was my motion. I felt that with the altered stamps that the legislation was altered, and that was illegal, and I was overridden on my vote. So I'm back here. I just do not with the altered stamp that this legislation is also altered and illegal. So that's why I made the motion that was discussed.
Okay. Give some information on this for clarifications and points of information. This legislation. When I'm done, Ms. Director, I'll get to you so you can put your hand down and I'll call you after.
Thank you.
This legislation was turned over to the Law Department in February 28th. 4 pieces of legislation to deal with some of the benefits that we provide to employees either upon retirement or to the job. This one in particular that we're talking about now is it actually gives prior credit for vacation credit even to people that are retired and on a public pension. They come in, the law director, I had some discussion with the finance director about this because there was a comment that he made at one of the meetings. He advised me that the prior law director had issued a verbal opinion that the ordinance allows or requires us to provide this credit to an employee like that. If we have employee A that comes into a position that is covered by ordinance and they may have served 30 years with another community or another public agency and retired, when they come here, the way the prior law director applied it was we have to take into consideration his 30 years of service, and when he comes here, he or she gets vacation credit based on that year of service. I had some concerns. I thought we would be able to exclude that through ordinance, and then when we ended up, like I said, on February 28th, I submitted that and the other items to the law department. On March 7th, they sent it over to the law firm to make a review, not only of, I think, any conflicts with the labor agreements or employee things, but also they advise us on some of the legislation that we pass and work on too. We got a response back March 20th. On the beginning of it, I met with the law director. We went through some of this with a draft legislation, and she explained some of the things. I explained some of the what I thought was confusion on the part of the law firm on a misunderstanding what my intent was. But I was concerned because dealing with this one in particular, They cited a section of the code, 9.44C, that says an employee who has retired in accordance with the of any retirement plan offered by the state and who is employed by the state or any political subdivision of state on or after June 24th, 1987, have prior service with the state, any political subdivision of state or regional council of governments established in accordance with Chapter 126, counted for the purpose of computing vacation leave. So I was a little concerned that when I got it back, when I got the opinion or the recommendation back from the law firm, that they actually said that it seemed to me that the practice that we're doing is actually against revised code 9.44. So I thought we should have some discussion on that. As far as I had other meetings with the law director in May, in June 3rd. In June, this got introduced, and I will explain this to you tonight. What I did was I had my draft copy that I got on April 7th. I scanned it into the computer and sent it to the clerk and asked her to convert the PDF to a Word document because there were some handwritten notes on my copy, and I asked her to convert it to a Word document and taking off my handwritten notes. While doing that, apparently it had, the stamp got altered because it didn't read it well. However, when I introduced it, and it actually both times, I told council, and it's in our minutes, that this legislation has not been approved by the law department, but I needed to get it into the system, and that once it gets into the system, we could work with the law department to clear anything up, and we can work with the law department to get the approval if it needed to be approved towards legal correctness and proper form. There was no signature that was on the legislation. You can't sit there and say it was a forgery or anything else like that. It was just simply a work product. And on June 5th, when I sent over the questions that I was directed to, I also in the thing said I wanted to remind that one of the councilmen stated that our caucus sessions are intended to be work sessions where we discuss and make changes. So bringing that legislation into a committee and putting it into a committee for caucus sessions just means we're going to work out any differences that there are and do things one way or another. My concern, I will tell you right away, my concern is this legislation should be addressed because there's sometimes we're looking at making payments of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to people that they're getting well compensated, and it's not it's in my mind it's a very generous benefit that's being provided above and beyond what necessarily the city is required. And I think at this time, with the changes that we've been making, we need to cut corners and make reductions in as many places as possible. So that's dealing with this one, but my main concern with this one item is the fact that it appears to be actually against the revised code 9.44 that we are providing this. We were acting on a verbal opinion that actually the finance director didn't agree with, but he went with it because the law director back then said that, and so they went forward. But the secondary concern I have is every time this comes forward, it just seems to be, let's shut it down and let's not do it. It's as if we don't want to take looks at it.
Point of order. Isn't there a motion on the floor that this was discussed for clarification?
And I'm getting to the part right now where I said there's a motion that it was discussed, but the motion, it seems like every time this comes out,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm explaining why it's.
You're explaining that because it's supposed to be for discussion.
I know, but
several of the things that you said are incorrect.
You raised your point of order,
right?
So the proper way for you to do it now is to wait for me to rule on your point of order, and I'm explaining why is that it was discussed when actually it hasn't been discussed. It's like every time this comes forward, let's make a motion that it was discussed when there's been no discussion. It seems as
Mr.
if
Chairman, again, point of order. I believe that if you look at the minutes of the meetings, there was discussion. I don't think it is, but anyhow.
There has been no discussion on these ordinances, the actual merits of these ordinances.
That's up to council.
But the concern I have is it seems like we're shutting the door when in June 30th, June 27th at the meeting, the direction was to forward some information to the law department so they can get some answers so that we'd be able to look at this stuff, and that was never accomplished. And I'm bringing it forward saying, how come it hasn't been, here we are nearly 3 months later, we haven't gotten an answer on what we've for. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you for recognizing me. I guess my concern is that I'm not saying that this information should be discussed. I'm saying that I would prefer if this particular set of legislation that we know for whatever reason the stamp wasn't correct is killed, and we start over with the information that we did talk about. So that's my concern.
I guess the concern I have, the question I have is, when will we get the information? 3 months ago, we asked for the information per council's direction. Nothing's been provided. So you say, let's move forward with it and do it okay, but we can't go forward if we don't get it. I mean, this legislation was requested February 28th.
And I understand that, but I also feel like
seven months later, it's still sitting there because it's just being held up.
It wasn't presented to us correctly originally with the appropriate
It was presented
stamp.
In a manner, and you were informed that it was not necessarily stamped, that the stamp didn't
and
show
we'll
it.
agree to disagree on that point, because I don't believe that's how that happened.
Read the minutes. Read the minutes. I said it wasn't approved. This legislation was not approved by the law director, but that it was, we can get in, we can work on it, and work on getting the approval. I explained what the difference was. There was no deception there. It was a draft copy that had notes on it. I cleaned it up for the presentation.
I don't recall that part of the conversation happening that night. Thank you.
Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, where do we go from here? Here's how I feel, and when he recognizes you, Madam Law Director, I know what you have to say, but are these things we have to look at? These are probably things we have to look at. I think this was probably the reason I didn't mind letting it wait so long, as it were itemized, looking at a specific type of them and not them. I mean, there's six weeks vacations out there. There's a lot of things out there that say, well, you know, that ain't maybe right. Well, this ain't maybe right, but you know, just once again, and I don't like, I'll be more than honest, just what's going on right now, I don't even like the smell of this right here. I just don't like the smell of it. I'm thinking this is going to be another thing where it's going to be a punching bag that's going to roll here for another 6 months, 8 months, and anyone could tell me different. To clean this up a little bit, I'd rather get this out, maybe look at it again, look at other things too. I mean, not just specific people, specific titles all the time. I mean, why are we just going wham at them? You know,
at them. Who is them, Councilman?
Point of order.
I'm asking for clarification.
I got the floor.
I'm asking for a clarification.
Okay, well,
you're saying them. I'm
answer the question. You can answer it for me. You brought this forward.
Okay, I'll answer your question. Them are the non-contractual employees, and if you're okay with a first-year employee being qualified to have 6 weeks of vacation, I think that's excessive. I think they shouldn't come walking in the door and have 5 or 6 weeks of vacation automatically, or even 4 weeks of vacation. All our other employees have to put a certain amount of time in before they get vacation credit. As you know, you worked in that system.
Through the chair to the finance director, are these people the top paid employees from 2016?
Oh. Through the chair to Councilman Mancini, the individuals in reference here are individuals that retired from PERS or OP&F, Ohio Police and Fire Pension. They retired, they came to work here, and the previous law director ruled and interpreted based on the ordinance that they were entitled to, if they retired with 30 years of seniority or 30 years of work experience, then they are entitled to 5 weeks of vacation. So they retire from PERS, Ohio Police and Fire Pension, 30 years of service with their employer. They come to work here, they get 5 weeks vacation. That's what I believe what this is speaking to. Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, but
No, that's
I
correct.
believe that's what you're speaking to.
We're giving credit, we're providing vacation credit for people that worked in another community or another public agency.
But it wasn't my question. My question was 2016, were one of these non-contractor or non-union the top paid person in the city of Brook Park?
They're individuals in directors' roles. I'm not going to go through all the employees that are affected, but they are in, directors' roles.
Okay, all right, thank you. We could look back at that when we all get into to do that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Let somebody else go.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to give it to the law director first, Mayor, because I was waiting for council first.
Thank you.
They seem to be done. So go ahead, Mr. Director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to address the pros and cons of these particular changes in our administrative code. That really is for another day. What I am going to address is the fact that this legislation did not follow the normal path that legislation takes. It was not presented to council by the law department. It was presented by the council president to council. That's not the way the rules say it's supposed to happen. Also, when I met with the council president, we sat down and talked about a draft. What we had were drafts of 4 pieces with handwriting on the drafts. The handwriting indicates changes to be made. Somehow, those drafts appeared without any handwriting on them. Therefore, none of the changes we discussed would have been made. It appears to me that one piece in particular had an entire paragraph retyped to eliminate 2 words that were crossed out and also to eliminate a phrase that would have been inserted in. For this reason, with regard to all of these 4 pieces, I believe that they are all flawed. They should not have been submitted. They're clearly the drafts, the intent of whatever drafts we discussed have been abrogated because the intent, the changes which were to be made in the drafts were all eliminated. And I would, if you don't mind, Councilman Troyer, I would say that all of these pieces need to go away. These pieces have been part of the investigation. I would indicate that the law department stamp does not appear on these pieces. Our stamp is an ink stamp. The originals of all of these pieces would have no ink on them whatsoever. And it is wrong to take something that had a certain intent and writing on it, eliminate the writing and the changes on it, and then present it as though that is something that has the law department's stamp of approval on it. I really don't want to go any farther into this other than to say that it is clearly not the way that we streamline legislation. It's not the way that we do things. And it is very, very concerning. These 4 pieces of legislation caused the law department to change its procedures once again with regard to this. And I certainly think that other pieces could be drawn, but I'm not going to address that right now. Instead, I would suggest to you that these pieces are flawed. I, as law director, would never sign them. If you decided to pass them, you would do so at your own risk. I would not certify them as to content. Thank you.
Okay, before we go forward, I mean, if there's anything that's actually wrong here, is the fact that I can't get legislation to get approved through the law department that's going to save this city tens of thousands of dollars.
Mr. Chairman, you said I was after the law director.
What's
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that statement may or may not be true. And the fact is, if you had a comprehensive piece of legislation to deal with it, it might be something that I support. But clearly what this is, I think you said it best at the podium the other day, you're here to challenge authority. The authority of the law director, You know, you criticize me for not following rules. You don't follow, let me finish. You don't follow them yourself. Everybody knows, everybody knows, no, okay, you said they don't apply to me.
You object when people try to do that to you, yet you're gonna turn around and do it to me.
All right, so anyhow, can I finish what I'm saying?
You can finish it.
The fact is a comprehensive piece of legislation to deal, this has been an ongoing, you said it at the beginning yourself, non-contractual employees. Now I have to tell you something, in some cases, for instance, from myself, I cashed out, I can't get anything, nor do I want anything. But in some cases, let's say you, that I wanted to appoint you the safety director of the city. And the city of Parma also was auditioning you for the job. The city of Parma said, Jim, if you come over here, we'll give you prior service credit, ba-da-da-da-da. And I really want you here, and I can't offer it to you. We're going to lose good, believe it or not, management is necessary. Good management is necessary to attract employees. So I think if you approach this in a different way, there's something we could probably work on in a comprehensive way. But this has been from the very beginning, since you got on city council, an assault on privileges. Management earns them as well as contractual employees earn them. They both serve the city. Every person, the thing I believe very strongly is every employee should be treated the same. You have benefits, there's extra benefits that our folks have enjoyed, our retirees, that nobody in the state has. And we were sensitive to that and got it worked out. So again, I would agree with the law director, and tonight's the first time we went through meetings and questions about who did this, how the legislation got here. For the first time tonight said you had the clerk do this or you did that. You know better than that. You're much more intelligent gentleman than that, to believe that this was going to pass the mustard. So whatever the merits of the legislation is, and there are some, they should be considered in the proper way. Not an assault on management, not jeopardizing the city. I don't believe what you're proposing would save any money for the city. And as a matter of fact, may be a detriment to attracting good management people coming forward. One of the problems we have in the contractual service is getting folks to want to be chiefs or captains. That's a problem that has to be dealt with. So again, from my standpoint, this is one more challenge to authority. You're not happy with what the law director tells you. You're not happy with what outside counsel, and you're going to proceed. If you would go in a different fashion, you might get a lot more support than you may think on some of these things. So I would concur with the law director that they're under the aura of the way these things have been presented to council, they should be discussed, defeated, and this taken up after an election, because there's nothing going to get done around here before. Everything is going to be political until the election. Let's be candid about it. So that's my comments about it.
Okay. The clarification I'll provide on your comment is the contractual employees, whether they be, if it's a contractual police employee or a contractual fire employee, they can't retire from their job as a firefighter or a police officer somewhere else and then come and work here. So
why not?
Because they're retired from the pension system. They can't come back to work here as a full-time person.
You're talking about firefighter or a appointed chief or appointed director?
You said it's, I'm picking on the non-contractual employees. It's not possible for the contractual employees to get this benefit because they get hired, they work their way up the ladder after certain years of service. I used you as an example.
You could come back and be safety director if I decided to appoint you, couldn't you?
And I shouldn't get 5 weeks of vacation because the state law says I shouldn't get it. We do it here.
We're a chartered city.
We're supposed to follow the laws.
We are a chart, and as you know, we can do, what I'm saying again, I think you might find a comprehensive thing that's fair
and to sit there and
be
say,
considered.
Right, and to say that, you know, if I came forward with something, well, guess what? I've been trying to get something to go through the law department, and I just get nothing in return. I gave information at the end of June, and I have not received a response back yet. Councilman Troyer.
Oh. Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just, in all this conversation, I have one question. I believe was this or was this not introduced? I believe it was not introduced. Is that correct?
No, it was introduced at a council meeting and placed in committee.
Okay. All right, and
it's never seen a council floor. Okay.
Meeting. And geez, I don't know why I don't remember that. It's been so long. Okay. I would like, what I'd like to see is, that's even easier. I would like to see this, and I know we have a motion, but I'd like to see this put back in committee, and I'd like to take all 4 of these back to the law department, and in the original thought of the bugs.
Sorry.
You know, the original thought, the original reason, the original reason for the legislation to be, you know, have the law director draw it up in a form that was the original intent of the legislation, and have it brought back with the proper, all the proper wording, all the proper stamps, signatures. Because again, none of this is an issue because there's no fictitious signature. There's no signature on it. So. And that's what I'd like to see is this really just put back in committee, and I will send it over to the law department and have it get straightened out. Thank you.
Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you tell me what the motion on the floor is?
Thank you.
There's a motion by Mr. Scott, supported by Mr. Burgio, that item number 6 would be discussed.
Okay, well, as one councilman, I think we should move forward in that direction. I believe this is the controversial problem with all this legislation can be finally put behind us. I agree totally with Councilwoman McDonald. She wanted to do that before this discussion. I think she was right on the money with that suggestion. If you want to sit down with the law department and redraft it, it's obvious to me that we're not going to go anywhere with these items that were not put in the proper form, do not have the proper signature from the law department. I don't see us going anywhere with this, so I think we should just follow the motion that is presented before us, follow the recommendation and the suggestion by Councilwoman McDonald. I will support that. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like you to call the question.
It's been a call for the question. Is there a second?
Support.
The call for the question has been support. The call for the question requires a 2/3 vote. I'll ask the clerk to please, it's not debatable. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Powers?
No.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
5-2.
Call for the question does not pass. Needs 2/3.
Well, if there's no more debate, then call the roll. There is a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor.
It's 2/3, no?
Huh?
7's 2/3.
Correct, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah, 2/3.
Thank you.
I misspoke. Okay, so we'll call a roll on the motion that the item number 6 has been discussed.
Scott?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
6 through 9.
No.
Powers?
No.
McDonald?
I thought her motion was 6 through 9.
Yes.
Mancini?
No, it was
Yes, it
just
was.
6.
Okay.
Rich Scott made the motion.
Somebody did.
We're good. She said she would like to see it happen that way.
What is that?
Motion was that item 6 was discussed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that item number 6 has been discussed. We'll move to item number 7.
We finished on her.
Councilwoman McDonald?
Wait, I didn't.
They finished on you, they never got to me.
Hold on a minute.
When you made
Mr.
the call.
Mancini
Okay.
said I didn't call him. I thought he responded to me. Okay, so.
I did on the call the question, yes.
You did on the second one.
Did you answer the call on the motion that it was discussed? Item number 6 is discussed.
I did.
Because I have you marked.
Okay.
So that's why I'm questioning.
All right, okay.
I have 5-2.
5-2.
Okay. Troyer and Powers.
I'm on the last one.
Item number 6 was discussed. We'll
Okay.
move to item number 7, which is an ordinance amending certain section 153.01E2 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinance entitled Prior Service Employee and declaring an emergency.
Motion is discussed.
Support.
It's been a motion that was discussed. It's been properly supported. Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I'd like to make a motion, well, I would like to say something first. and it looks like it's going to go this way.
I'm surprised
guess
the motion wasn't made that items number 7, 8, and 9 were discussed, but that.
We'll get
Yeah,
there.
and that was what I was going to offer, an alternative motion, but
You can always amend the motion.
right. I like to amend the motion to make it 7, 8, and 9. The motion to include 7, 8, and 9. Can I get a second on that?
As being
A
what?
second.
Okay.
Discussed, right?
Yes.
The motion is to amend the motion to say that items number 7, 8, and 9 have been discussed. That's the
Okay.
amendment. Any discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, will this be considered fast tracking?
Or streamlining? Maybe streamlining would be a better word.
Just.
A
Senior
little
Councilman
levity is always
Salvatore,
welcome.
fast tracking is not a funny thing to
Okay.
me. It's serious.
I just thought I'd get you to
And
smile.
just-
It's serious.
You haven't
I
smiled that
take
much tonight.
I take informing the residents
Council,
serious.
please. Okay, so the motion is to amend to, that items 7, 8, and 9 have been discussed. If the motion to amend passes, it will pass the motion as amended then, since it's relevant to it. So I'll ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Troyer,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
McDonald,
No.
Powers,
No.
Salvatore,
No.
Bergio,
No.
Scott,
No.
Okay, we're back to the original motion that item number 7 has been discussed. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. And this one, well, on all these, I'm just going to speak one last time on all these. Okay, so we can put these to bed, so to speak, but I really think we should immediately, I think we should stop kicking the can down the road and immediately have the law department draw up 4 pieces of legislation that resemble this, and pieces that the law department would feel good about approving as to their form and legalities. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm tired of kicking the can down the road. I think we should get this done. So I'm okay. I'm going to go ahead and vote yes on killing all these. But I think what we should do is reintroduce them properly, have the law department do it properly. Thank you.
that motion failed. This motion failed. 7, 8, 9. So we're still on 7.
We're on the motion to,
That was
item number
discussed.
7 is discussed, right?
Yes. That's where we're at.
No, the motion to discuss was already made, right?
Yes.
We're on the motion that item number 7 has been discussed. That's what the motion is.
That's
The
what we
motion-
need the vote on.
The motion is that item number 7 has been discussed.
Did it
The
get
amendment-
second?
Huh?
It didn't get supported, did it?
Yeah.
It had support,
Scott Mancini.
and then the amendment was
before I
made, the
tried to
amendment
amend it to all
did not
3.
pass. So we're back to the original motion that item number 7 has been discussed. Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
McDonald,
No.
Powers? No. Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
5-2.
Okay, item number 7 has been discussed. We move to item number 8, which is an ordinance amending certain section 153.02A of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Sick Leave and declaring an emergency.
Motion
Been discussed.
Support.
Been a motion that it's been discussed, it's been properly supported. Seeing no discussion on the motion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers? No. 6-1.
Donald.
Oh, McDonald.
No.
5-2.
No? 5-2.
Okay, motion passes, so item number 8 has been discussed. We'll move to item number 9, which is an ordinance amending certain section 153.02C of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Sick Leave and declaring an emergency.
Motion's been discussed.
Support.
Been a motion that's been discussed, properly supported. Seeing no discussion on the motion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers? No. McDonald?
No.
5-2.
Motion passes, so item number 9 has been discussed. That concludes the items under discussion. We'll move to letter 5.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, is it proper for me to make a motion to have new legislation drawn up for items 6, 7, 8, and 9?
No. Well, actually, yes, because a motion's always in an order, so go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion for the law department to draw up replacement ordinances for items 6, 7, 8, and 9, attempting to make the same adjustments. Can I get a second on that?
Can I say something really quick?
Was there support?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay, so
Go ahead.
motion's on the floor. It's been properly supported under discussion. Councilwoman McDonald?
Yes, I agree with that as long as you would amend that you kill the 4 that are out there right now. If we can. I don't, can we?
I don't.
Oh, we did that?
We did.
Never mind.
Yeah,
I'm fine then, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry. Okay.
They're all dead, okay.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Discussion, Mayor, or you just, I can't tell.
Oh, I think the better way to do this is let us come up with a recommendation. Like I said, if we have a comprehensive thing to deal with this, we're the administration, we should be able to propose this to you. In the fashion it's in right now, I can't support it. But I don't have problems with coming up with a piece of legislation I believe will address all of this that you can vote on. Council can do whatever they want, but I'm just saying.
Councilman Troyer? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I mean, that's what we're asking to do. I mean, you're welcome to, the law department's going to draw it up. You're welcome to have, I'm sure the law department would take your input. I mean, this is,
I would
this
hope,
is,
I would hope they would, but
council's business to do these kind
sorry.
of things. I mean, you want to,
right, it is
you want to, you mentioned,
necessarily.
that the council president was usurping his authority. Now you're trying to usurp council's authority and run council.
Okay. As soon as you get done.
Okay.
I'm not trying to usurp anything. What I said was this. Okay, I'm willing to bring forth a comprehensive piece of legislation that will address these issues, which is fair. I'm the one who has to hire people. So I'm not, I just got done saying, and Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, council can do whatever they want. I'd like to be in a position to support what council's doing rather than being opposing it before we ever start the process. So if you would change your motion to allow the law department and myself, I know what Jim is trying to achieve here, and I agree with most of it. Okay? So if you allow this to do, is fine. If not, get your own legislation, and we'll have this argument for another 3 hours at another meeting. That's what I'm saying.
Within my motion, it's given that the law department could confer with anybody to get it to a point where the law department would want it to be, where it's right, where they feel it's right. I mean, I have no problem with that.
Mr. Chairman.
So I think that's a given in my motion, because I'm asking the law department to go ahead and draw it up under the idea of what these were meant to do. And, any way the law department wants to do that is the way it should be done. So I think that already encompasses my motion.
I don't think so.
Hold on, Mr. Mayor. I simply want to just state, I think you actually both agree, you just happen to speak a different language. But that also, I have no problem with it going forward in the manner that I think you both are saying. I mean, my intention is to get legislation to the floor of council so that we can look at these things. If it takes a motion for you guys to do it, I don't care who drafts it. I drafted something, I asked for a draft in February. It hasn't happened. If somebody else has to draft the legislation so that we can look at these benefits, let somebody else do it. I don't care who authors it. I'll be more than happy to sponsor it, but I wanted something to get on the floor. I just couldn't get anything to the floor before. If it takes this way to get it to the floor, so be it. We'll do it that way. I'm okay. Let's move.
Okay.
So the motion is to put 6, 7, 8, 9 in the law department to draft up legislation to reflect that? That's the motion of council. That's what's up for discussion. Councilman Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As one councilman, I would like to see these items put on a caucus for discussion prior to the drafting, so that there can be some type of direction given to the legislation preparation. and you're gonna have legislation drafted, what's the content gonna be?
I think we have what I submitted before. We have an opinion. We have a memorandum that came from the law firm of Walter Haverfeld that outlined a lot of things. There's plenty of direction on what to do. I think if you sit there and say, let's put on a caucus for more discussion, it's just going to delay it even longer.
I concur. Mr. Chairman, if I may, if council will allow.
I'll allow it. Go ahead, Mr.
Council, if council will allow,
I'll allow it. Go ahead, Mr.
the law, I know what you're trying to achieve, and most of what you're trying to achieve, I concur with. If they'll allow us to draft a piece of legislation for council's consideration that will provide, so no one can abuse this, and give us the flexibility to attract directors or other management people, I will do that. Okay? Because I don't think any administration's hand, if there's benefits, there are things that I agree totally with in this legislation. I think it could probably all be combined into one.
The only thing under discussion I would ask is that there be some sort of time frame, because I don't, you know. I mean, it doesn't take that long to draft legislation.
Well, when you have nothing else to do, that's correct. So you could do it anyway. This is my suggestion.
Our council rules actually allow, you know, it's a week to 2 weeks, and if that's fine. If it takes 2 weeks to do it, I'm good with waiting 2 weeks. Okay. But I'm not good with waiting 6, 7 months. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council Chair, Mr. President, Council President, and Chairman. It was stated that we should have something to look at. I mean, that's what we had tonight, and they was all defeated under discussion. I mean, they weren't even discussed really. I mean, that's what we had tonight, a chance to look at them and adjust them. So I would ask that that my fellow councilwoman, and it didn't sound good on me, but would rescind your second, and I'd like to rescind my motion.
You were second.
Oh, you were the second. I'm sorry, you were the second. If you rescind your second, I'll rescind my motion and make the motion to have in items 6, 7, 8, and 9, have the law department draw up legislation to an attempt to do the same thing roughly, with using the help of outside counsel, the mayor and his administration, and anybody else you see fit, the law department sees fit, to get it right.
Mr. Chairman.
That is my motion.
Mr. Chairman.
That is huge.
Is there support for the motion?
Mr. Chairman.
There is support. Councilman Mancini on the motion.
You give them more than 2 weeks on that then. I mean, you're throwing everybody and everything in there. I think we should at least give it to, what are we looking at here, October 24th at least. I mean, you got to give them some time. There's a lot more things going on than just looking at these 4 things over there right now. I mean,
I didn't specify.
By the time we get around whatever you want the group to do this, that'll be 2 weeks. So I say.
I didn't specify a time frame.
You didn't, so I kind of am. I want to give the ample time that's needed on this. So I'm looking here, the caucus on the 24th.
So caucus, 24th is caucus.
Is that an amendment, Councilman?
Make an amendment? Yep. Do we give time on this to come back from the law department, and we could have it on for the October 24th caucus meeting?
There's support for the amendment?
I'll support it. Can we have I'll support it, but I may withdraw after the law director speaks. Thank you.
Well, you need to support it for the purpose of discussions.
Okay, I support it for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, open for discussion, Ms. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilman Troyer, why don't you just send me a request for legislation with the understanding that I'll take your request, and with the mayor's help, we'll get something drafted. I don't really think you need a motion. You may, of course, do so if you wish, but just make a request, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. We're doing it by motion, so there's a motion on the floor about it, so.
Support.
No, there's already a motion there.
We're done.
We're there. It's under discussion. Councilman Scott.
We're putting a time frame on this. You said, what, on the 24th, we have to have this done?
24th, that there would be something drafted up for the October 24th caucus.
I don't like something like that. When you're putting a deadline on something like that, how do you know the discussions you have to have? How do you know the people you have to contact? We're telling them that they have to do. How do we know what's on the table? How do we know what she has in front of her right now? How do we know that the 24th is going to be enough time to do an adequate presentation, a draft? How do we know that?
I'm fine, Parche. Pick a time. I just threw it out there. Pick a time.
There should be no time.
Somebody.
Mr. Chairman.
Hey.
I make a suggestion. All this legislation is all gone now. Doesn't exist anymore, correct? Okay, so I'll draft a piece of legislation with the law director that I believe will address this in a manner where it won't constrict it, and we'll bring it back to you as soon as we can. Okay? We've discussed it ad nauseum.
Your hand up, Councilwoman? Okay, I can't tell if you're looking to be recognized. Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Again, that would be usurping council's authority and ability.
I have the right to introduce legislation just like you do. Let's forget about it. You draft your piece, I'll draft mine, we'll debate it. This is ridiculous. I know what the council president's got to achieve.
Point of order.
Point
of order.
How about that, Jim? Huh?
Point of order.
We don't need a point of order. We're at the end of the discussion. We can
Thank God.
call the roll on the motion. I'll ask the clerk to read the motion so that everyone knows what they're voting on.
There's a motion by Mr. Troyer, supported by Mrs. Powers, to have legislation drafted. Nobody supported the, oh, okay, we're doing the amendment. All right. Okay, there's an motion on the floor by Mr. Mancini, supported by Mr. Troyer, to have legislation drafted for items number 6, 7, 8, 9 on tonight's caucus agenda, and have them back to the council office by October 24th.
Before the October 24th caucus.
To have them, right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just for a point of order, for point of information, that is just for the date. This roll call is just for the date. Isn't there another motion?
It's the amendment, yes. It's the amendment to put a date on there,
okay.
yes. So this is a vote on the amendment. If the amendment passes, then the motion will pass as amended.
Okay. Thank you.
Call the roll on the amendment, please.
Mancini?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Powers? McDonald?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
Bergio?
No.
Salvatore?
No.
Okay, the amendment fails, so we'll go back to the motion, which is to have the law department draft up legislation for the intent of 6, 7, 8, and 9. I believe that's the motion.
That's
Paraphrased as best I can. Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
No.
5-2.
Okay, motion is approved. All right, now we'll move to item number 5, which is Legislative Committee Chairman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I'd like council to entertain a motion to take a brief 5-minute recess.
No.
I'll support it.
Get a support? I actually didn't make the motion. I was looking for someone to make the motion, but I'll make the motion.
I'll support that.
Okay. Motion made to take a brief recess, properly supported. Clerk, please call the roll on, on any discussion? Please, clerk, please call the roll. It's been a while.
Troyer?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
Bergio?
Yes.
6-1.
Who was the dissent?
Scott said no. 8:54.
Look what I caught for you.
Oh, I don't like killing spiders.
No, Rachel.
Pardon me?
What time did we start discussion? How long for discussion?
Started at 32, 32:24, so that would be about a half hour, 40 minutes discussion on that.
Rachel, help me out on this. Do you feel it like? Because I can't have it aimed this way.
So how you doing there, young lady?
They weren't in committee.
What does that mean?
At the June 27th meeting, there was never a motion to have them put back in committee. They were removed from the agenda, which basically gave me no further direction to do anything with them.
So it was.
Okay, that just stated.
Was discussed. You agreed.
Discussed in committee, yes, because the committee is shooting it down. They don't want them anymore. Killed it. Correct.
Okay.
So that was my response that I couldn't think of before. It was discussed in committee. Voted. Legislation would be killed or read because it wasn't in committee basically.
All right. Come on. Got it.
I was trying to,
I think everybody.
That's just one of those rare occasions. It usually doesn't happen like that. Usually it's something in a committee.
Why does everything seem like it's always a rare occasion when I'm sitting here? It's a rare occasion this happened. Rare occasion this happened. I don't know, but you're
we're
right.
ready.
Let this go. Okay. Write that down.
It's my turn.
All right, Tom. Whenever you're ready. Jimmy, get his attention.
Tom.
Call the meeting back.
Tom, call the meeting.
Item on finance. Wasn't it?
No, I said it was item number 6 or 7. I put it after the service committee.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know, he walked in the back.
Councilman Bergio? Sorry, Carl. I saw you walking up here and I didn't see you where you went. Ms. Paxton?
Okay, council. Like to make a motion to go back to the regular order of business.
Support.
Okay. Motion made to go to the regular order of business. Properly supported. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll. I guess there couldn't be. What could there?
Troyer,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Mancini.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Okay, that passed. Back to the regular order of business. Legislative Committee, item number 5, number 1. An ordinance amending section 1348 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Front Porches and declaring an emergency. Councilman Scott, you asked that this be pulled out of committee. I'd like to go to you first on this, if you have anything to say on it.
Now, I would like to have, if possible, to have Ted, the building commissioner, come up and speak on that.
Sure. Mr. Hurst, come on up to the lectern and give us some information.
Yeah, the legislation for Planning Commission review of front porches, it really causes an undue burden on the residents. One, financially, they got to pay the $75. Two, they have to come to the Planning Commission to build a porch by the regulations that are set forth in the zoning code and the building code of Brook Park. We have regulations on how a porch has to be built. You can't build it otherwise. To bring them to the Planning Commission, obviously these people start in May. I know they could start in December, but it usually doesn't happen. They don't get to Planning Commission until June or July. If then they get approval, then they have to submit construction documents. By the time they're building their porches, it's September, October. We can build a house in this city without going to Planning Commission for approval, but we can't build a front porch by the rules that you've set forth. I think it's just it really does puts a hardship on the residents that want to build the porches. We don't get a lot of them, but we do get them. Tom, you're on the Planning Commission. I don't think we've ever refused one that meets the criteria that's set forth in the code already. So that's the reason for getting rid of it.
Okay, thank you. I understand what you're saying. I tend to disagree because I can tell you one in one situation where, being on the planning commission, I went out and talked to the resident and about the front porch, and I made a suggestion to offset it, and that resident took me up on that offer and decided that, yeah, that's something he'd like to do. I don't like there's a reason the planning commission has been supposed to this is supposed to go through the planning commission. It's been that way a long time. So well, since 99 at least, I just don't want it going to one person making that decision. I think it should be a committee, and I understand that, you know, maybe they're late getting it in there, but we can call special meetings of the planning commission. I mean, I don't see where it's a problem for us. The planning commission, I understand that if I've added up right, met for about little over an hour, all of 2016 total on the planning. We're a little longer this year because there's been a few issues, but we missed. I think, as a matter of fact, I think June and July there were no meetings, if I remember right. You know, we're compensating for people not doing what they're supposed to do ahead of time.
Mr. Chairman,
I don't like. Yes, Mr. Mayor, is that a point of order?
No, it's not. You're the chairman. It's my legislation. You're dominating discussion.
Yes, I am.
You're making statements again that you're challenging the credibility of the people on the planning commission, that they're not earning the money that they paid. They have nothing to do with this legislation. So I'd like to speak to it if I may. So, okay, I will continue to have the floor and run my committee. I'm not disparaging the planning committee. I'm just saying that they can call special meetings and get these things done faster if that's what needs to be done. Okay, Mr. Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, probably not the planning, but maybe a little bit our building department. Ted, if I could ask you a couple of things, because I have done on some of my home's porches. We still do, and everything in here reads as stand is. The front porch with the concrete, all that other stuff, still can't make them out of wood unless it's aluminized wood.
The only thing that changes in this ordinance is the fact that they don't have to have planning commission approval.
Which would be number one.
They still have to be continuous footers. They still have to be block brick and masonry and concrete cap. No wood, no composite. None of that is allowed. If we're going to go to planning commission, then maybe we should eliminate that criteria and let people design them, and then you could approve them, because some people want to use wood, some people want to use composite.
Well, let's be honest. A front porch, if it's built wrong, if it's funky, whatever way, whatever you want to call it, would definitely stand out. It's a front porch. What I say is our building department okays big additions and things of all kind of such sorts, driveways, all that. I don't think a front porch is one I want to sit here and beat up.
And to me, it only makes sense that they shouldn't have to come to the planning commission to build something that you've told them how to build. You told me how to build it. You told me what I'm allowed to do, but I still have to come before you and show you a picture.
Yeah, and again,
because the planning commission doesn't control the building codes. It doesn't regulate the building codes.
Right, and I'll say this as
that's my point.
I'm going to finish on this. Is you get out and walk your ward or walk the city, or seen a lot of nice porches. Absolutely. I've seen a lot of nice porches. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me say sorry, Tom. We've never had a problem at the planning commission. It's not a problem with whether we're approving or disapproving, et cetera, et cetera. It's a matter of timing. And it's always an issue. And anything that goes to planning commission has to be public noticed. So that takes up time. We have to put it in the paper. It costs a lot of money to send the certified letters. This is all monies that is futile. As I said, we're building a house on Michael Drive as we speak, and that does not have to come to the planning commission.
Thank you.
Okay, let's come back to me I want to clarify a few things. There are some good things in this legislation, and some things actually do change, because there's added wording not allowing, because it used to just be treated wood or womanized wood, and now it's changing it to list synthetic or composite material, and in 2 places. And it also lists, with the exception of temporary handicap ramps to be constructed with womanized wood, composite, and synthetic, and must be stained or painted to match the house. So we're allowing that on a ramp.
On handicap ramps because they're temporary.
Right.
They're not permanent structures.
Exactly. So there is some good wording in here that has changed. I think it was stated that it hasn't changed.
I'm sorry. I think the only thing that did change was the synthetic because it's a new product.
Right.
The composite and synthetic.
So that's a good update.
But
There's no doubt about that.
The gist of the legislation specifically says you have to build with brick, block, and masonry.
And I'd like to bring something up to the law director. In section 1, it lists a date in there of July 13th, 1999 of the original ordinance. And let me find it. In section 2, it lists July 14th, 1999. That's the typo that needs, we're going to assume that's a typo, and we're going to fix that.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman McDonald, you don't want anything? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else want to discuss on this before? Okay. Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say that 1984, we're enough into 1984 without this. I believe that it's an individual choice. Composite materials today are so good and so durable that they're as good as concrete. And I don't see why we couldn't have whatever the homeowner wants to use as a material to do this, because so many of them are maintenance free or almost maintenance free. And if I want a composite porch and somebody else wants a concrete one, and somebody else wants a stamped concrete or a colored concrete, then each person, we need to be individuals as much as we can. And this takes away any individuality and just makes you a 1984 robot. I would like to see that as long as it's a good, durable material, why not allow people to be people and go with their choice of materials? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I just want to point one other thing out. The Planning Commission is generally going to be for aesthetic approval. Again, Planning Commission generally does not discuss too much about what's going to be used, what kind of materials, that kind of things. This does speak to that. But again, it's for aesthetic approval. So if there's something that doesn't, we get a picture or a drawing of it and something that doesn't look right, that doesn't fit the neighborhood or something like that, the Planning Commission can reject it. So, I mean, I think it's still important to have this another level of decision making on another group of people to make sure our front porches are compatible with our neighborhoods. And that's what this aesthetic approval is for with the planning. So with that in there, I can't vote for this. And I would also like to make a suggestion, and I'm not going to make the motion, but I also have concern that under hang on, let me get there right. Under 1348.01B says basic standards. And there in the second paragraph says any existing front porch structures not in compliance with this section shall be permitted to remain so long as the structures are in good repair. I think that what that does is give an amnesty to the ones that have been installed since this legislation has taken effect. So I would like to add, I'd like to accept a motion to add after to remain so long as structures, and then in there put were in place prior to February 5th, 2008, which is the last time this was amended.
Mr. Chairman.
Because I think we don't want to give anybody that's been broken the law or been against our ordinances a chance to skirt the system.
If I could, real quick,
Go ahead.
and I'll finish up. I brought this forward to help the residents that I get complaints from for the process and the cumbersome process of putting on a porch, okay? The ordinance can stay the same. It's been this way, it's been intact since 94, whatever you told me it was. That's fine, it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is the residents have asked me, why is it I can build a house and not have to appear before the planning commission, but I can't build a porch? That's all I'm saying. It's up to you guys. I'm not asking you to change a bunch of legislation and change the design of porches and create special specifics. The ordinance covers it. If you have a porch before this date, you're good. Well, this doesn't change that.
It does change that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
It does. It says, any existing front porch structures not in compliance with this section shall be permitted to remain so long as the structures are in good repair.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
let me read the first part of that. All new front porch construction after the effective date of this section must comply with the following basic standards. So that says when this is passed in its present form, it grandfathers all the illegal front porches that are currently in place.
Mr. Chairman, they're not illegal.
that were built after.
If there are them, yes, but there aren't. I mean, do we know of porches that were built without the way they weren't supposed to be?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Where are they?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Mancini.
My legislation,
Thank you,
you're
Mr.
asking
Chairman.
everybody else except me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Council's first, Mayor.
Not really.
Well, as I walk in Ward, and I'm going to make this quick, in Ward 2, I've seen a lot of good porches and standard porches that are very good, even the older ones. And yeah, if there's any that are dangerous, this and that, and that's where I get into the point. Well, if we're going to let them just build what they want to build, there'll be people using cinder blocks for steps. And I mean, I remember one time, I'm going to name the street, but I seen plywood around the casing of the porch. Do we want to get into them things? Is that how we want to make our city look? So, I got to think if a porch is kind of illegal or it's been that way for a long time, it's probably not the most safest one, and I'm sure a mailman, somebody of that sort, would bring that to attention. At least I would hope so. But that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak on this? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry,
Did you forget about me?
You weren't flaming.
Yeah, well,
okay.
Go
ahead, Mr. Mayor.
All right, well, first of all, they're not illegal porches. They're conforming because they were constructed prior to the enactment of this ordinance. So you can't arbitrarily determine that that they got to go, and it's not amnesty. They were conforming use at the time. If they're not in repair, is the only standard I believe you can apply. Then they become non-conforming, and then they have to apply to this. There are porches in this city that don't comply to this ordinance, and they were built prior to its effect, that are beautiful and strong and solid. Okay, I'm walking around this city, and I got to tell you, there's people fixing their brick front steps and their concrete front steps because they're failing. So there's no amnesty here. All right, there's a design standard that everyone must, so why 5 people or 7 people have to make that determination? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. In your case, where you ask them to adjust it, if folks want to do a porch that doesn't conform to this, that's why you have the Zoning Board of Appeals. They could come and ask for a variance. The other thing is that when we have these things, we have to notify people. They come up, and most people support their neighbors or like what they're doing. So it's just an exercise that, as Ted said, a convenience for the residents. Most of them have not presented bad plans for their house. That happens very rarely. They always usually have pretty good plans for their house. So I would ask council to pass this as it's presented to them, and we can facilitate hopefully some more improvement in the city. Without this would be 1984, Jan. We're limiting 1984, where we're making them go to these headless, insensitive bodies of individual to get approval. If they do it with this way, they can build their porch. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your consideration.
Okay. Let me just clarify a few things. My amendment would have been to just add the date, of not saying we should go back and cite or remove every porch that doesn't comply. I'm just saying we should go back to the date of the original ordinance, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that we should go out there and remove every porch. I don't think people that didn't follow the rules should be allowed to continue that, but that's another story. And let me also, before I go to what's your pleasure, I mention that again, the planning committee is for aesthetic approval. So a group of committee members can decide whether it fits to the neighborhood. And I think that is something that has helped the city along the way, and I think it should continue. Thank you.
If I may, before you go to what's your pleasure, set spec, plan review, compatible with house design and color, safeguards is all in the requirements, building materials, everything is in here to make sure it fits the neighborhood. That's why standards are in here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that's always been in there.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct.
And the
So
planning.
what's your
and
point?
The planning commission has served us well. In fact, I don't think there's even been one this year. Ted, was there any front porches this year? I don't remember one. Okay. Thank you. So, all right. So I guess it's much as doing not nothing because we didn't even have one this year. Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
Motion placed on next council agenda.
I'll support.
Okay, motion made by Councilman Scott to place on the next council agenda, properly supported by Councilman Mancini. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Scott?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Okay, we'll see that on the next council meeting. Let me write here. Okay, and item number 2, an ordinance amending section 153.03 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Leave of Absence for Temporary Military Training and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Coyne. Councilman Scott, you also asked to have this taken out of committee. Would you like to speak on it first?
I'd like the mayor to speak on this. This is his legislation.
Yeah, when we had a discussion this evening, I talked to the council.
Excuse me.
I beg your
What did
pardon?
you say, Mr. Scott?
I said I'd like to have the mayor speak on this. This is his legislation.
Okay, Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. In talking with the council president, anything on this evening's agenda that pertains to employees generally, I'd like to get the legislation that the law director and I are going to work on that deals with the other issues and have one caucus meeting that deals with employees generally and nothing else. Do it comprehensively, all the different issues, so that they're dealt with fairly. So that was going to be my suggestion, to place it back in committee, and that the council president make an arrangement once we get the drafted legislation to deal with all of the employee generally issues at one meeting with nothing else on the agenda, so we can take the time and have good discussion about it. That would be my request.
Okay, Mayor. I just have one question, if you can answer real quick. Do you know how many employees this affects?
Right now, one.
One. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Anybody else want to discuss this? Council, what's your pleasure?
Motion placed back in committee.
Mr. Scott, what was that?
Motion placed back in committee.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, motion made to place back in committee by Councilman Scott, properly seconded by Councilman Mancini. Clerk, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Scott?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
One moment. Okay. Okay, Council, with your indulgence, I do have to ask a question of the law director on this next item. On this employees generally, I'm not reading it. Do I need to recuse myself on this? Are there any police involved in this?
I'm sure there would be, but because this also includes other employees in general, I would say that you would not have to. I think it's broad enough that you would not need to do so.
Okay, I'm gonna be more careful than that, and I'm gonna recuse myself at this time. Thank you.
Who's co-chair? Yeah, Chairwoman McDowell. So you need to take over as chair.
Delightful. Okay.
We're on page 3.
Madam Chairman?
Item number 3.
All right.
And I think the mayor would like to just put it back in
As
committee.
I just said in the previous piece of legislation
So
that...
you just ask for a motion that it be placed back in committee.
So I am going to ask for a motion for this to be placed back into committee.
So moved.
Support. Oh, you luck out.
Then you ask for discussion.
I'm sorry. Discussion. I forgot I was. Sorry, guys. Any discussion? All right, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini? McDonald?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Salvatore?
I get 2 votes or
Yes,
just 2
Oh,
votes?
sorry. Horatio?
Yes.
I'm going to vote no
Scott?
on the second one.
Yes.
It's old school.
It's back in committee.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That concludes the items under your committee, Councilwoman?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the items under legislative committee. So we will move to item number 6 on the agenda, which is Service Committee, Chairman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Service Committee has 2 items on tonight's agenda. The first one is an ordinance authorizing the consulting engineer to prepare an application to participate in the year 2018 Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Movement Improvement Programs for financial assistance on the Holland Road reconstruction project and declared an emergency, introduced by Mayor Coyne. Mayor, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, this merely allows us to prepare an application for the funding. This is for Holland Road. We were told we were going to be part of last year's funding, and what happened was they cut us off, so we're going to get back in the race again this year.
And this is from Holland Road from Engle to Fry?
I believe that's correct, Ted, yes.
Mr. Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a good piece of legislation. I move that we put this on the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Support.
There's been a motion to place on the next council agenda and properly
Chairman.
supported.
Mr. Chairman, does Mr.
Yes, Mr.
Troyer
Mayor.
know my name's on the legislation?
I think he's aware of that, Mr.
Would he like to put his name on the legislation?
Absolutely.
With all other members of council, so you don't feel alone?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for consideration, Mr. Chairman.
I would agree.
Jan?
Yeah.
Yes, everyone.
Yes.
Jan
Me.
said no.
No.
Yeah.
Motion has been made and properly
You're
supported.
going to have to adjust your percentages.
Councilwoman Powers, you have a question on the discussion?
Yes, it says Engle to Fry. That's
Yes.
a very short distance, and I want to know how much money it's going to cost, and I want to know how many feet of roadway we've got in that distance.
Mayor, would you like to discuss that, or would you like to?
Ed can do that. It's the width of the pavement. It's probably one of the widest sections of street we have in the city, but Ed prepared the estimate the last time, so I'll let him speak to it.
Okay, defer to our engineer, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The current estimate, and we got till next Thursday to submit the application, so we haven't finalized it, but the cost estimate, construction is around $2.2 million. The length, I don't necessarily have a length. I'm sure I could Google it and look it up, but I do have a square yardage, and it's a little over 12,000 square yards of concrete. So that would, and we're anticipating a complete remove and replace of the entire pavement section.
Complete reconstruction then, catch basins, curbs,
Correct.
everything?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mancini.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. If I could really quick on this will be partially in my ward, and let's be more than honest. Holland Road and that piece of section of the city is probably like Snow and Smith when you really think about it during the early mornings hour, in the afternoons and the evenings with the rush to the schools and of sorts. It's a very important piece of roadway, and you know, any time we could get some financial assistance on a main road, on a road like that does need some work, I'm all for it. I cannot be against it. State capital improvement programs are great, and so I'm all for this piece. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Estrino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just questioning because if I remember right, I think October 4th is the deadline for the application, so we need to get this passed by the next meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Piatek? Okay.
Ed, I have a question also. Will this tie in with the new school being built and with some of the other
we hope so.
ingress and egress? Is that going to be?
We hope so.
Okay. So it'll be coordinated between
If we get the money, we got to solve the problem. We'll solve it.
Yeah.
I think we've already solved it.
Good. Okay. Any other questions?
Second to that.
Ms. Powers, you have a question?
Yes. Number one, I wanted to know what Sylvia cost from Engle to Smith. That's what's being repaired now, right?
That's
what the cost is
point
on
of order.
that.
This is not.
That is none. That's not what we're
This
discussing.
is not legislation for that particular item.
Chairman.
But if we know what one area costs, then we know whether or not this one is a bit out of line, and it just seems to me that yes, it's like I said, I just think it's a very short distance for a very inflated price, and also I don't like getting these things at the last minute. October the 4th is the deadline. And yes, when we asked the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Fund, that's our tax dollar just the same as our tax dollar that builds the road here. So I think those are good questions, necessary questions, and something that we should address. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think, maybe Ed would know better, that you can compare those two streets. They're different streets, different widths. I'm not sure if you can really compare the costs on both of those. I could be wrong, but
Carl,
Mr. Estrino.
Yeah, I just, in the legislation that I just remembered, I saw under Section 2, it says it doesn't identify the fund that it's going to be coming from. So could we get that added to the legislation? It's the old Language of just to be appropriated for said purpose.
Mr. Single, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, we can have that added. I work with the law department to have it added.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can answer the councilwoman's question. This particular piece of legislation will cost us $3,850 for the consulting engineer to apply for the application and everything for us to get this public works money. That's what this piece of legislation will cost us, nothing more, unless we do get the money. And I like to go to this was discussed, but to the engineer, to the chair of the engineer, Mr. Piatek, we pass this on the 3rd. You're okay with getting it down there by the 4th? Is that going to be good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, what is council's pleasure?
Motion to place on next council agenda.
Support.
I think I already
Did we already make
already
a motion?
made that.
Troyer and Mancini on the
Okay,
October
sorry.
3rd.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Just
There's
wanted
been,
to make sure it got on there.
it's reinforced now.
2 votes, 2 motions. What the?
Okay. Motion was made, properly supported. Any discussion? Council, Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Troyer,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Powers,
No.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion is passed. The second item in the Service Committee is a resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the year 2018 Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs, and to execute contracts as required and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Coyne. Again, Mayor, would you like to speak on this?
I think legislation speaks for itself.
Motion to place on the next council agenda.
I'll support.
There's been a motion to place on the next council agenda, properly supported. Any discussion? Mr. Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to engineer, Mr. Priatek, can you elaborate on this just a little bit? I'm sure I'm going to vote for it, but for the residents.
Sorry.
Basically, this piece just, you know, allows us to get paid to prepare the application and the mayor to execute a contract with Public Works and as necessary, you know, if we are awarded the money. The project, you know, just for further clarification, if we were to be successful, there would be further legislation that would come forward authorizing the plans to be developed and specifications to be developed and the mayor to go out to bid and enter into a construction contract. So this is just the preliminary groundwork dealing with the Public Works Commission in getting, you know, and submitting the application and then authorizing us to have that application, having my office prepare that application and submit it.
Okay, so it's a companion piece with the previous piece.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers? No. Troyer?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Passed 6-1, and that concludes all the items in my my committee.
Thank you, Councilman Bergio. We will move to the item that was added to the agenda, the new number 7. It was in the Finance Committee. We'll go to the chairwoman, Councilwoman McDonald.
Thank you, Council President. Okay, so we have one piece of legislation that should have been placed on this caucus meeting as far as the upcoming discussion or the 2 parcels that would like to be purchased by a company. I do know that we had several council people submit questions, and there are a couple other questions that were submitted for answers. I do believe the mayor suggested that we have Mr. Dolan speak to that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So, what is your pleasure? Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mayor, what are you looking? Are you gonna? We're gonna wait. We want to put this back in caucus till when? Can Mr. Dolan be here?
I didn't know it was going to be on the agenda this evening. I would have had him here this evening to talk about it. I didn't know.
So we need to just put this back in committee until we.
Correct, and we'll have him. You put it on the committee, on the caucus agenda, and we'll have him come and we'll go through it.
Okay.
Motion to put on the next.
Council President asked for a lot of information on the property, so we're trying to put that together.
Motion to put on the October 10th caucus meeting.
Can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There was, I hope, Mayor, that by the time that does happen, when we pull it out, we have all these questions answered, because they haven't been yet. And I appreciate that. And
before you leave that subject, some of them we may be able to answer, some of them we may not be able to answer, because some of these documents are so old, we're going to have to try to find them.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll have most of them.
No, I'm fine.
You're good?
As long as we get the information before the meeting, that's good.
Okay. I heard a motion to place it on.
I'd like to have it myself.
The October 10th caucus meeting.
It's not what he asked for.
Who?
Go ahead. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, the other issue, this gentleman may withdraw his proposal to purchase it too. That's one of the things we're trying to figure out. But we should have the information anyway, just in case it comes up in the future again.
Madam Chairman, may I?
Go ahead.
Mayor, you're suggesting putting it back in committee until Mr. Dolan can be
We can have
notified.
it on the caucus agenda, and we'll provide whatever information that we have. Some of it we don't have readily. We're trying to locate it. The law department's doing the research on it.
Okay.
Some of it's in the codified ordinances already.
So what do you suggest?
You can put it on the caucus, and we'll come and whatever information we have, we'll give it to you. Because in the event that someone else comes forward, if this entity changes their mind for whatever reason, we'll have already, council will have already gone through this and discussed it and have information for the
Okay.
future.
All right.
Because
Well,
I'd like to know myself.
You suggested you wanted in committee, now you're saying it on a caucus, so okay.
So
Oh, come on.
we have a motion on the floor to place it on the caucus agenda for October 10th.
Support.
Support
Scott?
There
by
you
Mr.
go.
Scott.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Call the roll, sorry, guys.
Suggest.
Oh, any
discussion.
discussion first, sorry. Call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes. All right. Passed.
That's all I have.
Take it away,
Okay,
Council President,
Thank you,
please.
Councilwoman. That concludes the items that are on the agenda, so
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
the motion to adjourn has been properly supported. Clerk, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Caucus meeting is adjourned at 9:40 p.m.
Council meeting.
Teeth.
Do something to set up for. We got
Special one. Let's go.
To be the bearer of bad news.
Where you going?
Oh, we have a special council meeting immediately following.
Remember when,
Remember?
on Saturday, I took the second reading?
I know. Wait, I got you. It's right here. I'm here. All right.
Yeah.
I was all ready to go home. I'm sorry.
How disappointing for you, huh?
No, that's got a little ways to go yet.
All right. We are ready.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 26th special council meeting for the City of Brook Park. Notices were sent to council members Troyer, Mancini, Powers, Scott, Bergio, McDonald, Salvatore, Council President Astrino, Mayor Coyne, Law Director Horvath, and Finance Director Single. They were notified that a special meeting of council was called for the purpose of a council meeting. Such special meeting will be held on Tuesday, the 26th of September, immediately following the regular caucus meeting. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Bergio?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
Troyer?
Here.
Powers?
Here.
McDonald?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Everyone, please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. As is with all special meetings, we allow for audience participation on the items that are on the agenda. Tonight, we have 6 items that are on the agenda. Ordinance authorizing and approving the mayor to go into a personal services contract with Pro On-Call for professional services. The second one is the same type of ordinance to do it with ViaSound. The third one is a personal services contract with the Customized Phone Systems, Inc. The fourth item is a personal services contract with the Building Technicians Corporation. The fifth item is an ordinance authorizing the consultant engineer to prepare plans and bids and the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the administration parking lot project. And the sixth one is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to hire inspectors for the administration parking lot project. These are the 6 items that are on tonight's special council meeting. If anyone from the audience wants to come up and talk about any one of those 6 items, come up to the microphone, give your name and address for the record, and speak to us about the legislation. Okay, seeing no one coming forward, we will move to, these items are on 3rd reading. Okay, item number 1 is ordinance number 1096-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing and approving the mayor to enter into a personal services contract with Pro On Call for professional services and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
If I may, as if you council will recall, we had the original proposals from the providers, and one filed a challenge, the other one filed a challenge. We, on the advice of the law director, we asked for resubmittals. Pro On Call is still the best bidder, and the price has been reduced from $100,878.07 to $85,858.84. And it's our recommendation again that Pro On Call stay as the provider for the phone system at that price. So we actually, with them fighting, we reduced it about $7,600. Again, this is outside the scope of the energy. This would be the phone systems with the connectability not only for the community center, also police, fire, and service.
Councilman Salvatore?
Through the chair, to the mayor, could you repeat that? Is that number 85,858.84? And it's, we're gonna have to amend it to amend the 100,000?
Correct.
So I'd like to make a motion that we amend in section 2, $100,878.07 and replace that with $85,858.84.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion to amend section 2, the dollar amount. Under discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on the amendment.
Salvatore?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Troyer?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay, the amendment passes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, request council pass this ordinance this evening. It's been provided for in the appropriations.
Okay. Council, in order to pass this ordinance this evening, you're going to have to make a motion to suspend Rule 12J, which states amending ordinances or resolutions. It shall be in order to amend a resolution ordinance at any time, but if such ordinance or resolution be of general or permanent nature, and such amendment is made after the second reading, it shall be read as amended as the second reading and laid over to the next meeting for final action. So I would have to, I could entertain a motion to suspend that rule. We could vote to suspend the rule, I believe, Law Director, correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes, you are correct with that amendment, which is materially go back to second reading, but of course, council could suspend.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Salvatore?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend.
Support.
Rule 12J. Okay, there's a motion to suspend Rule 12J, which would convert it to second reading. So if we don't, then we can go forward with it.
Support.
Support by Councilwoman McDonald. Any discussion?
Well,
See?
I would like to just make one comment before the vote, if I could.
Just under discussion, make your comment,
We're
Councilman.
not really changing the intent, we're actually saving money, so I think it's, I think it would be a wise thing to move forward at a reduced amount. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on suspending Rule 12J.
Salvatore?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Troyer?
No.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
5 to 2. Didn't pass.
Audience, please. Yes, but audience needs to be quiet during this meeting. Control yourselves, please. Okay, so the Rule 12J has been suspended. A motion to adopt is in order.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion to adopt ordinance 10,096-2017. It's been properly supported. Any discussion? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just want to note that this is a no bid contract, so I'll be voting no on it tonight. Fact of the matter is, we're not saving. The amount is about $15,000 difference between the original legislation and this legislation, which is a good thing. But we're still spending $85,858 on a no bid contract. Just think what would have happened if more companies would have got involved in this bidding process, how low it could have went. So again, I'm a no on a no bid contract. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may speak.
Councilwoman, just hold on there. Council first, okay. Councilwoman McDonald.
I would just like to mention that when we started this process, 7 companies were contacted and only 2 replied. So I think we did get who wanted to do the job.
But it wasn't advertised.
Council, please.
Yes, it was.
One at a
Okay.
time.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Would anyone on audience like to come up to the dais and take over? I mean, please, audience, please be quiet.
Don't ask him again.
I know. I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
I'm
Are
fine.
done?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilman Troyer?
It wasn't advertised through a bidding process that I know of. I know I wasn't here for a couple meetings. The point is, our charter does not allow non-bid contracts in this amount. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. This is for a design build of a system. Your charter clearly provides for it. Clearly provides for it. You seem to think that just because they're certified bids that they're exactly holy. You go out for proposals on professional service because they're designing something. You're saying, here's what we have. What are you going to provide to meet our needs? You have a fundamental misunderstanding of what this is all about. So the fact is, you had people who came in and looked at this, said we don't want to compete for that, we're not interested in that, and you had 2 very quality people compete for the work. So everything was done legally and properly, except for your personal opinion.
Council, any other discussion? Seeing no other, Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Mayor, just because you say it so doesn't make it so. Thank you.
Call the question. Let's go. Let's go.
Seeing no other discussion? Really? Law Director?
I just wanted to indicate that I would concur that the procedure that was followed here is proper. I believe we also had my associate, Peter Sackett, here for one of these special meetings, and he also gave the same opinion. This has been thoroughly discussed with the Finance Department. Clearly, these funds are already appropriated, and it was advertised. So I see no problems here with it, and I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
I guess, yeah.
Okay, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adoption.
Mancini?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Troyer?
No.
Salvatore? Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
5 to 2.
Ordinance number 10,096-2017 has been adopted on third reading because of the suspension of Rule 12J. We'll move to item number 2, which is ordinance number 10,097-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing and approving the mayor to enter into a personal services contract with Customized Phone Systems Incorporated for professional services and declaring an emergency.
Council will entertain a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
It's been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Is there discussion on adoption? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Again, no bid, no vote.
Okay.
Seeing no, Councilwoman Powers?
I don't think this is not an emergency. We need to stop calling everything an emergency to get it through. We do not need to be rushing through on these things because this is just
This is third reading.
a ploy to.
This is third
This
reading.
is just. I have the floor. This is just a ploy
point
to
of order.
get
Councilman-
things moved.
Hold on,
okay?
council people.
Thank you.
Councilman Mancini, I don't understand your point of order. I understand it's third reading, but in the title it says "and declaring an emergency," and that's what she's talking. That's what she said. She doesn't.
Right, emergencies and everything. It's so we get past first and second reading. But go ahead.
So your point of order, I don't take it well. But so continue, Councilwoman Powers.
Figured.
Sorry, what?
Let's go. Let's run
Sorry,
a good
what?
meeting. Let's run a meeting. Let's go.
Let's run a
I
meeting.
said, I told you to tell her we could finish. Let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini, for giving me permission.
Give you permission. I said go.
Councilman Mancini, please, you do not have the floor. This is not your little show here. Please. Go ahead, Councilwoman
We need
Powers.
to slow down a little bit on this whole thing of dismantling our city buildings and getting everything over to the recreation center. So we do not need to be rushing these things through, and I just think it is wrong at this time to do this. Management just may be changing in another couple of months. So let's just slow down and think for a while before we hop into everything. Thank you.
Any other discussion, Council? Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adoption.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
No.
Troyer?
No.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
5-2.
Ordinance number 10,097-2017 has been passed on third reading. We'll move to item number 3, which is ordinance number 10,098-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing and approving the mayor to enter into a personal services contract with Viasound for professional services and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It's been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
McDonald?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Powers? No. Mancini?
Yes.
5-2.
Ordinance number 10,098-2017 has been passed on third reading. We'll move to item number 4, which is ordinance number 10,099-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing and approving the mayor to enter into a personal services contract with Building Technicians Corp. for professional services and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
It's been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Any discussion? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Again, no bid, no vote.
Okay, any other discussion on ordinance number 10,099-2017? Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers? No. Troyer?
No.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
5-2.
Ordinance number 10,099-2017 has passed on third reading. We'll move to item number 5, which is ordinance number 11,000-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the consulting engineer to prepare plans and bid documents and the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the administration parking lot project and declaring an emergency.
Move to adopt.
Support.
There's been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Under discussion. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I believe this must go through planning. It has not gone through planning, so I believe it's improper to pass this, so I'll be a no on this tonight.
Planning.
Okay. Any other
Director would like to
discussion?
speak on that.
Ordinarily, with regard to public buildings, there are 2 sections in the charter. I will happily do you an opinion. I feel that this is certainly appropriate. You're talking about a parking lot. I don't see that it needs to go through planning, but I'll get you an opinion on it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, council? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Powers?
Absolutely no.
McDonald?
Yes.
5-2.
Ordinance number 11,000-2017 has passed on third reading. We'll move to item number 6, which is ordinance number 11,001-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to hire inspectors for the administration parking lot project and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt. Support.
It's been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Any discussion? Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. It's come to my attention that this ordinance was not put on the agenda, not placed on the agenda by council, by any kind of motion, so I think it's improperly before us tonight.
They would have to ask you to clarify. I'm not. As you know, I did not attend the last meeting, and I was not able to watch the live stream on my computer. It wasn't loading up.
I did watch the shorter meeting, just try to get caught up, and the chairman just announced that it would be on, instead of taking a vote, instead of having a motion and taking a vote, the chairman just announced that it would be on the next council, the special council meeting. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's a way for council to fix that at this time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm sure there'd be a way for council to fix that by some type of motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Director.
I believe Rule 14 discusses agenda, and you have the ability to add things to an agenda if you so choose. That might be the rule that would be useful. I don't think there's any posting problems with regard to this ordinance. I think the clerk has properly posted to make the public aware of the contents of the ordinance. So I would suggest that hopefully my recollection is that that is the correct rule, and maybe you can take a look at that.
Mention that they would be placed on the September 26, 2017 special council meeting. So there's one half of the one and one half of the other.
How about the other ones? None of them.
No. I can go get the minutes. Oh, no, I
No.
can't, 'cause I can't print them out, so.
Second reading.
Okay, well, I've got enough information now. Like I said, I didn't have the information, but enough information now. I'm gonna rule that we can go forward with it, because actually, from what I was just told, items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were handled in the same manner, that there was actually not a motion made by council. I will make an editorial note that, I wish that flexibility and leeway was afforded to me when I chair a meeting, but, you know, council seems to require me to accept things by motion, but they gave the pro tem the ability to just make a casual announcement. That's the way business should be run. Sometimes you need to relax things a little bit. But you know, the other concern that I think the councilman has is that these meetings were called, special meetings were called by the mayor, and council is the one that has the authority to advance legislation. The mayor can call for the meeting, but we've on the first reading and on the second reading, we made motions to move them to the next meeting. We probably should have done that on Saturday, but since we've already done the first 5, and since there's no other motion before us, I would accept the motion on ordinance number 11,001. Is there a motion made already?
Yes.
I will accept the motion on ordinance number 11,001-2017. So,
Support.
any other discussion on 11? It's already been made.
That's good.
Challenge was raised. We're going to go forward with it. Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on the adoption.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Reluctantly, yes.
What was that?
Reluctantly, yes.
Powers?
Definitely no.
McDonald?
Yes.
6-1. Ordinance number 11,001-2017 has passed on third reading. That concludes the items that are on the special council meeting. So, council.
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn is in order. We can't
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
It's a motion to adjourn. It's been properly supported. Before I call the roll on adjournment, I will announce that we will be holding a special council meeting on Thursday. I'd like to do it at 5 o'clock. We need to do stuff with the tax legislation that's on, because there's a deadline on that. But we did not add a special council meeting to tonight's meeting for that. So I will be working with the clerk to call a special meeting for Thursday at 5 o'clock. Okay, so now I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adjournment.
Mancini?
Councilman Salvatore?
Before we close, that special meeting that you're going to call for Thursday, again, we're assuming that the votes are going to be there to
I
suspend.
can't hear him.
If that's not the case, maybe we should call a meeting for Friday too, just in case. It's because it's important that this get passed. If we don't need the meeting for Friday, then we don't meet it, you can cancel it, but we better be prepared.
If it does, I'm sure if it doesn't pass on, what's the date on Thursday? The 28th? So if it's the 28th, if it does not pass under suspension of the rules, we can call a special meeting for the next day at the meeting and do it that way. So.
Can I just address council real fast, please?
No, you can't.
Okay, well, we have the mayoral
Brandy, you
debate
can't, please.
on the 28th. The mayor's debate is in this room on the 28th.
Do you understand the word no, Brandy?
Do you understand?
You asked if you could, and I said no.
Council president runs the meeting. He's aware of what the situation is.
Well, thank you very much, but we were fully aware, and that's why we scheduled it. So please, call the roll on adjournment. You're out of order, lady.
Mancini?
Yes.
Bergio?
I think we should fire her.
Scott? Yes. Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned at 10:09. Thank you very much.